On this week's episode, what's in a picture when it comes to Batman? The God of Mischief debuts on Disney Plus, and it's part one of our E3 preview. All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at Pop Culture Cosmos, popculturecosmos.com, or anywhere you see Pop Culture Cosmos on social media, it is greatly appreciated. And just a heads up, if you need a last-minute Father's Day gift, head on over to manscaped.com for all those great men's grooming and lifestyle products. And if you type in the code, all one word, Fast Break, courtesy of our sister podcast, the Lakers Fast Break, you can go ahead and get 20% off plus free shipping from manscaped.com. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He's our own caveman when it comes to Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to go ahead and check him out every time out at popculturecosmos.com. His awesome book, Congratulations, You Suck, which is available now on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. And, of course, his podcast, the Super BS Podcast, the Super BS Gamescast. It is my good friend indeed. It is Mr. Caveman Josh. And there's a good reason why he is Caveman Josh. Josh Peterson.
What's up, man? What's going on? It's a Sunday, and I am coming at you from my phone here. Obviously, you know that super smooth radio voice is not here today because my dog literally ate my internet.
Oh, I know you're a teacher. You are a teacher by trade, and I'm sure there's been more than one student who was come up to you. Mr. Peterson, Mr. Peterson, a dog ate my homework last night. I couldn't turn it in.
Yeah. I mean, I actually have gotten that excuse before. So, I mean, and it actually did happen. Like, they showed me pictures of the paper and the dog's feces afterwards. So,
okay.
Yeah. But, so my dog ate my internet. Really unfortunate. You know, we live out here kind of in the countryside. So it's going to be Tuesday before we get someone out to fix it. And I'm living like a caveman, you know, like I can't even, you know, I was sitting down earlier, can't even play Xbox because all the Series X stuff or a majority of it is all online. Like you can't access the game unless you're online, and that's driving me crazy. So I've been playing PlayStation 5, Horizon Zero Dawn, because PlayStation, you know, as much as I love my Microsoft stuff, PlayStation does not utilize that only online to like save the game function, which has been nice.
Well, I'll tell you what, as I told you on the DM earlier today, welcome to 1992.
I know, I'm about to start like getting some flint and stone to light a fire in here when it gets dark.
There you go. Yeah. Yep. No internet, indeed. But it is going to be a great show we still have for you today. And Caveman Josh is going to gut his way through it as best he can. But we got a lot to talk about on today's program, including the debut of Loki this week, Wednesday, in fact, to Disney Plus. So you better catch it on Wednesday because we're going to definitely have thoughts on the Friday show. But we're going to talk about the stuff leading up to it, Loki, the character, how it got to this point in the first place. So we're going to talk about that coming up in the show. Also, as well, we're going to be previewing E3 because E3 is around the corner. And I'm already been approved. I know Josh is getting through it, and he's going to be approved. And so we're going to be a major part of E3 this year. We're going to go ahead and preview part one of our great thing. We're going to go ahead and call E3. It's our E3 preview. We're going to it's our E3 preview part one, and we're going to go ahead and talk about Nintendo, Sony, and PlayStation. We're going to talk about Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox. It's our console preview start off. We're going to start off with the console makers on our E3 preview part 1. So that's coming up here in a sec. Plus, also on the back end of the show, we've got No Ian Fine. He's going to stop by once again. He saw a picture of Batman. Actually, it was a picture of a Batman suit. It was being sent out by the director of Flashpoint. And he became obsessed with it. So when Noe Fine from Hunniqueen gets obsessed with something, he's got to come on the show to talk about it. So he's going to talk about why this bloody picture of a Batman suit is so intriguing and where it might come from coming up on the show. And on the back end of the show, we're going to be, Josh and I are going to go back to the ye olde times of Chivalry, because Chivalry 2 is a video game that's coming out to PCs this week. We're going to talk about what happened with the open beta, how well it got over, and what's the whole big deal with Chivalry 2 and why it could become a big hit for PC gaming coming up here on the show as well. But first, my friend, it is the box office. But before we do that, before we go to the box office, you have already got Marcus and I started on trips to the Rumorville. We took one last week on the Friday show. We said hi to you along the way, by the way. And I'll tell you what, it was great to go ahead and do so. But you said you wanted to go back and take another trip to Rumorville. So, all right, I'm gearing up the car here. I'm starting it up. All right, let's go. Let's go take a trip down to Rumorville.
Sorry, I must have missed you guys waving to me because I was just in the basement doing research on this one of my favorite topics here in Rumorville is the Spider-Man No Way Home. You know, we've been speculating for a long time about what this movie might entail, who's going to be there. You know, the Charlie Cox and the Andrew Garfields and the Tobey Maguires. So, surfed around the internet a little bit the other day and found,
which is a very, very dangerous thing.
I know you could fall into a hole in the internet and never come back. So what I did find was some potential plot leaks that a lot of websites had posted. I don't know if they're very reputable websites or reputable websites, but what they're saying is that there's a little guesswork at what's going on here. So we know we have the Green Goblin, right? William Dafoe is in No Way Home. We know, that's all.
No, we don't know that for
we
sure.
We don't know, but it's all but been confirmed. We know
Alfred
that
Molina has spilled the beans on everything, but he hasn't confirmed Willem Dafoe.
Yep, and we know that Jamie Foxx is reprising his role as Electro.
Yes.
And we have speculation that Charlie Cox will be playing Daredevil. He'll be playing Matt Murdock. I don't know about Daredevil.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be Daredevil, but it'll be Matt Murdock.
Yeah, and we know that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield might be in it, despite Andrew Garfield denying it, because he's actually a pretty good secret keeper.
Yeah.
Okay, so the plot goes like this. The plot that I read goes like this. It says that Doctor Strange is helping Peter Parker hide out, because everyone found out he was Spider-Man. Doctor Strange is helping Peter Parker and his friends hide out here. In the Doctor Strange's mansion, Peter Parker runs into this I don't know, it's he's at a prison of some kind, and in it is William Dafoe's Green Goblin.
Willem
Dafoe's Green Goblin. And what he tells him is that, hey, because we're being because we're stuck here, all the multiverse is falling out of whack. So you need to let us go so that you can save the world. If you let us go, the multiverse will be fine. You'll save the world. But it turns out that Doctor Strange has been these villains have been finding ways into other universes. So he's been capturing them and imprisoning them so they don't mess up the multiverse. So Tom Holland lets them go. One thing leads to another. And so you have all these villains from the multiverse terrorizing the MCU. And so it turns out the only way that Tom Holland can fight these new villains is by going and finding the other Spider-Men, right? So he gets Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield. Together they fight all these multiverse villains. Willem Dafoe kills Ned, and Tobey Maguire dies in this fight, and then Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man kind of like tells him, you know, he has the opportunity. Tom Holland's Spider-Man has the opportunity to kill Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, and Andrew Garfield stops him and said, "Hey man, this is how like you become a villain by doing this." And so, you know, that happens, and then they don't really say what happens after that. But you know, that's like a rough guess of what that storyline is going to be. Whether or not that's true, we don't know. Again, this is Rumorville, floating here on the rumor mill. But there are a lot of things out of that do sound plausible. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. That's pretty deep. There must have been a lot of leaks if that's the case, and I'm not sure.
It was like several paragraphs long. I just kind of paraphrased it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting scenario if that was the case, and obviously that would lead to a lot of interplay between the Spider-Mans. And after seeing the Spider-Man fly high into the air at Avengers Campus, it makes me now excited to go ahead and see what's upcoming. By the way, we wanted to say hi to you because you were once near Avengers Campus.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you now? You had to move. You're now in kind of, you know, we were like, that's a major part of our discussion on Friday was like, let's go see Josh. Oh, we can't. But anyways, but be that as it may, you know, with Spider-Man flying around at Avengers Campus, the hype for Spider-Man No Way Home is going to go ahead and be in full swing. I kind of like that premise, but because it does combine certain elements of the MCU in regards to Doctor Strange. It gets the multiverse started and gets the Spider-Verse end of it started, so we could go ahead and see many, many things at that time. The only thing with this multiverse there, and the multiverse in the MCU, and the multiverse in the DC universe, which is upcoming, which we'll talk about later for the Flashpoint with Knowing and Fine, is it going to be told in a manner that's not confusing for the consumer? That's the only thing. That's what I'm worried about is, are people going to be able to easily understand it? Is it going to be told from a narrative that we do not have to go ahead and stretch our brains that far? I mean, because if it does, and if you have to go deep into it, and you have to go understand the whole next. I'm not talking about any like real, you know, deep dark things that are hidden Easter eggs or anything like that. I'm talking about just a basic narrative. Is the narrative when you go into the multiverse, because they've only dipped their toes in it so far in the MCU, and with the Spider-Verse doing it, and the MCU doing it, and the DC universe doing it, they're all going to be doing it. This is going to be a new next 5 years that we're going to have to get to understand these multiverses. Is it going to be too much for people, the general audience out there, to handle? That's what I'm concerned. Is it going to go over our heads? If that's the case, it's not going to be any fun following all these hero stories anymore.
Right. And you know, the complexities of the multiverse aside, with something on this scale, you have to think about this because this is if this is true, you know, and all the Spider-Men are here, this is going to be a movie that not only has to propel Tom Holland into the next chapter, but it's going to have to officially end the Spider-Man movies from years past, right? It's going to have to put a bow on Tobey Maguire's story, put a bow on Andrew Garfield's story. So we're going to have all these like layers within the complexity of explaining a multiverse. So this is like, it's falling I mean, it sounds intriguing and I'd love to watch it, but it sounds like it's also falling dangerously close to like, you know, the issue with Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2 and the fact that there's too much story to be told in such a short time.
It's like this. You know a person, and I know a person that's out there that doesn't keep up with everything in the MCU. They come on occasionally for the big stuff, and they'll catch the big movies and whatnot, or maybe they'll catch one of the shows on Disney Plus, and they'll come in and they'll feel like they've been lost a little bit, but they still are able to catch up enough in order to go ahead and enjoy what they're seeing. Once you get into this multiverse things with all the MCU and the Spider-Verse and the DC universe all doing the multiverse type deal, if you're a person that is not up to it like we are, that can explain it to people out there, or if you're not a person that regularly watches what's going on, you're going to come into it and be totally lost, and that's going to just disassociate yourself from anything relating to these one of these universes for good. You're just going to walk away and be done forever, because you could really, if you do not do this right, lose a general part of the audience, which would be the difference between a good movie and a hit movie.
Yeah, and like I also, you see this a lot in the comic books. So first of all, let me say that I appreciate Marvel trying to tie all the strings together, right? Like all the loose Marvel properties that have been done through Fox or whatever other production companies have owned these properties over the years. But it's also, can create an issue where like it becomes a cop out for storytelling. You see this in the comic books where like, oh, this villain's here to take over the world. Oh, multiverse, man. It all makes sense. Like there's no reason like a villain just shows up from the multiverse and wants to destroy, Earth 616 or whatever it is in the comic books. And there's no like logical rhyme or reason for it to happen. It just becomes like, oh, it's a multiverse. All right. I don't have to explain any further.
Absolutely. So it's going to be something interesting to see if those rumors pay off, or if it's something totally different that we're going to be seeing upcoming for Spider-Man No Way Home. But the bigger question is, as all three of these universes, the Spider-Verse, the DC universe, and the MCU, starts dipping their toes even more into creating a multiverse on their own, will it keep the story intact to go ahead and be able to explain itself to the general viewers out there in the years to come? I think that's the bigger question that they need to ask themselves, and that's the biggest question that is going to need to be answered. And we're not sure if it's going to be answered until we see the money coming in at the box office. What are your thoughts out there on the impending multiverses for the Spider-Verse, the DC Universe, and the MCU? Plus, also, what are your thoughts on those rumors that Josh had us take as we went down to the Rumorville on Spider-Man No Way Home? Share your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, there's still much more to talk about on today's program. Real quick, I want to give everybody an update on the box office. F9 has done extremely well. It's gone over $250 million worldwide at the box office before it even hits the UK and US later this month. So kudos to everyone at Universal for creating another hit in the middle of a pandemic. Also as well, one of the best back-to-back weekends. In fact, it is the best back-to-back weekend so far for the pandemic here in the US, as in week two, we see A Quiet Place Part 2 just falling short of regaining the top spot once again for 2 weeks in a row. Unfortunately, it did not get that top spot. It came close, though, right around $20 million for the weekend. But number one at the box office was The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. That sneaks in at number one with $24 million here in the U.S. Cruella came up a little bit over $10 million, so it's still doing good. Plus, you got to remember, it has the Disney Plus access. And with The Conjuring, it did number one, Josh, with HBO Max. So that's day and date, HBO Max. Plus, it still managed to go ahead and sneak out as number one. So what does that tell you when you have a movie like The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, still hitting number one with a nice take of $24 million here in the U.S., but still remain a day and date with HBO Max?
It goes to show that there are, I guess, both models can be profitable. There's potential for both the people to stay at home and watch these films and the people going to theaters to watch these films. Like, I know that people are missing like the genuine movie going experience, and there are people who would rather come home and kick their shoes off and, have some food and sit on the couch and watch a movie. So I think there are, there's big opportunities for both. But I guess what it's going to narrow down to in the end is, which one of these movie watching forces is more powerful?
Absolutely. Which one ultimately wins out? I think if the numbers for the virus worldwide go up again, even to any lengths later on this year, that's going to be a concern for a lot of people, and you might see a lot more people staying home to watch these day and date premieres. But if it holds steady or declines even more, and God willing, that hope that is the case, then we could see even a more progressive individual base going to the theaters. So that's going to be a good sign, and we'll wait and see. But again, congrats to The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It. I'm not going to congratulate the devil, but I'm just going to congratulate the people making The Conjuring. So sorry.
Can I add
Sorry,
something?
Beelzebub. No can do for you.
Can I add something real quick?
Sure.
You know what? The Conjuring is like a weird testament to the fact that like how many film reviews out there actually influence what people watch. You know, because The Conjuring 3 is getting it's not getting awful reviews, but it's not getting anything above like an 8, you know, or below a 5. So that's like a 6 or 7. That's like a middle grade movie. And it's still like doing a great job. Like people are still watching it. So it just makes me wonder, like, one, it is a testament to like people not listening to movie reviews. And two, what does this say about movie reviews? Do they really have as much influence as we think they do?
We will actually find that out this next weekend, because In the Heights from Lin-Manuel Miranda and his ideal as far as his influence on this upcoming film and this musical that's coming out this weekend, it has already been seen by critics around the world and it has been praised. And I think it is the highest rated movie of the year so far. And that is coming out this weekend to theaters, In the Heights. So we will be talking about that on the Friday show. But Josh, to your testament, I think we will find that out as far as the power of critics' words, especially in a positive manner, coming up this weekend with In the Heights. I know it's day and date with HBO Max, but I still think we're going to find out the true testament of how good or how powerful these words are still in our society coming up this weekend.
Yeah, I was just like, you know, like again, like we're in a weird time, right? Where people are not really caring what they watch. They're just looking for something to watch. So,
Yeah.
you know, you see a lot of stuff like Greenland with Gerard Butler, Chaos Walking. You have Guy Ritchie's, what's the Jason Statham movie that they did?
Oh, yeah, the bank robbery one. I forget that.
Yeah. But you have like all these movies that people would not normally go out of their way to watch, or like haven't been marketed very well, because people don't need to market movies right now. Everyone's just looking for anything new to watch. And you know, it'll be interesting to see like if this does anything to dismantle the critic industry.
The critic industry, again, like you said, is word of mouth seems to be on social media. The word of mouth on social media seems to be just as powerful these days as what critics are talking about and critics are saying and what they're following, what they're watching. Because to me, it seems like we only hear about what the critics are saying when it's really praised or when it's really demonstratized. And, you know, if it's something that comes out and the critics really all say it's a stinker, I think that influences films. And if it's something really great, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. We'll wait and see. But again, the most praised film of the year so far, In the Heights, is coming this weekend. So we'll put it to the test. But again, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. If a lot of people the devil must have made a lot of people do it, because they watched it, and they watched it big time, as it wins the #1 seat this weekend at the box office. But before we head to the break, my friend, we've got another mischievous individual that's heading to Disney Plus this week, as finally the MCU returns after taking a little over a month off with Loki, and that series, which a lot of people are very intrigued by. I really love the vibe of this film. It really reminds me of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It has that really, it also has like a Terry Gilliam feel to me. It just really is something different. And I know that WandaVision, people loved WandaVision Hoodoo because it was something different for the MCU, while Captain America and the Winter Soldier was something more traditional from the MCU. Now we go back to something a little bit more experimental for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Your thoughts as Loki drops Wednesday on Disney Plus?
I know that like I complain a lot about like how we're oversaturated with Marvel stuff, but I can say that I'm genuinely excited about this because like I don't know what to think. It's like it feels like this show is a mixture of the X-Files and Fringe and has elements of Umbrella Academy. Like it's very aware of itself, and and from what I've read by the director, like it's supposed to have major repercussions across the entire MCU. And if you remember, everyone's talking about how Doctor Strange is going to, and the Multiverse of Madness is going to be like the introduction of the multiverse. We've already technically been introduced to the multiverse if you think about it, right? Like when they go back in time and they change the timelines, they created a multiverse in that moment where Loki gets away. So that being a whole separate thing, I'm curious how this is going to have these major repercussions across the entire MCU. Will Loki eventually make it into the main timeline? Who knows? I don't know what to think, and that's really kind of exciting to me because I don't know anything about this show. I don't know what to expect. I don't know where the story's going. I just know that it's going to have a lot of Loki, like that whole like, hey, I can be violent or I can be funny or I can have, I can be an action star. Like we're going to get to see a lot of different sides of Loki in this show, and I'm excited about that.
And this is already a series that has been approved for season 2. Also, as well, it's a show that's going to feature a character who could be present for Thor's Love and Thunder as well. I would be very interested to see how this Loki fits into that movie. He may not be a big part of it in this time around with Thor's Love and Thunder because there's a disassociation between the old Loki and him developing into the Loki that we remember and people cared for at the end as he got himself killed by Thanos. But going back to this, I want to ask the one thing I would ask. If I were able to right now sit down with Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel, who is the designer of all this, and he's got that big whiteboard somewhere where he's just got everything mapped out just perfectly. Whereas I said before in DC land, it's like erased all over the place, and you got erase marks all over.
Seriously, can you imagine if one of their execs wrote in Sharpie on the whiteboard? They'd be in trouble. They wouldn't be able to change anything.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the lady on the AT&T commercial. But
right.
in regards to what's going on with that, if I were to ask Kevin Feige one question, and the question would be this: Tom Hiddleston, is the reason why you're dealing with the Loki character 10 years after you debuted him, is he the reason, or did you have this mapped out already with Loki? I have a feeling, and it's just a feeling, and I could be wrong on this, that he would tell me that Tom Hiddleston has made that Loki character a valuable part of the MCU. If you would put another actor in there, and he would have given an okay performance per se in Thor, because Thor is an okay middle of the road movie, but is really buoyed by the performance of Tom Hiddleston. Tom Hiddleston makes that movie, and I don't think anybody here is going to tell me differently. And his character coming into the Avengers, was the Loki character the original plan as the villain for the Avengers, or did Thor, his performance in Thor, really get that going? And his performance in the Avengers, did that get his future going in successive Thors? That's what I want to ask you, Josh, is how much of this 10 years plus later, and the fact now that we're having a series with Loki with another season to come in the future, how much of this is actually, or was actually, do you believe, planned out by Marvel? And how much do you believe was planned out after they saw the performance of Tom Hiddleston?
So I don't think a show was planned out at first, but I think that because of how he owned the role and how people responded to it, they saw the potential there. So I imagine, I feel like they probably had some kind of like, I'm sure they had big plans for Loki, because if you look in the comic books, like he's even bigger. He's got an even bigger presence in the comic books than like Thanos does, for example. But
I mean, in the wrong actor's hands, if you've seen him as many times in the movies as we already have, it could have been a tired act after, let's say, Thor: The Dark World and whatnot. We could have been done with Loki by then if his performance wasn't up to snuff.
So, I mean, the funny thing about the Dark World too is that we saw sides of both Chris Hemsworth and Loki, or not, but Tom Hiddleston, acting wise, that we had never seen before. You know, and I think that truly, I think it was though the movie was so poorly received by people, I think it was the performances in there that really like opened up the world, opened up the potential for what these characters could do and what they could mean to people. Because yeah, they're funny and they're siblings and they fight, but there's also a lot of emotion and depth and I guess like comedic aspects there that can really be mined out of those characters. So I think it was around the time Avengers came out that they probably mapped out the future of Loki. You know, they kill him in Endgame and like, you think he's dead? No, he's not. Or no, that was Infinity War. Sorry, but yeah, you know, I think they had plans for this to happen like way, way, way back. I just don't know if it was right after you know, Kenneth Branagh's Thor film, which wasn't actually that great.
That's the question I would love to ask Kevin Feige. Anything relating to the MCU, all the questions, anything like that, that he would honestly tell me how much of this is Loki that was already mapped out, and how much of this is Tom Hiddleston. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think Tom Hiddleston has to do a lot with this, because he is every time out. We don't get tired of him. I don't get tired of watching him on screen. He has been on the screen now, unlike Chris Hemsworth, who was really flat, boring, and Shakespearean in a bad way for the first couple movies, and Avengers, and also the original Thor. Tom Hiddleston has always been there. He's always been able to own the role of Loki, and always been able to you feel emotions with him. And that's the thing. Even though he's a character you're not supposed to feel emotions with, people have grown to be so appreciative of his efforts. And you know what? I think that 10 years later, I'm not tired of seeing Loki. I'm excited for seeing what happens on Wednesday as we go forward, and seeing what the God of Mischief can really do when he creates a lot of mischief this week on Disney Plus.
So I think, you know, just to wrap this up, like I think it was and you know, I want to know your thoughts on this. I think that as much as Kenneth Branagh, like he's an excellent director, like he's a very, very talented man, but most of his background is in plays and theater. So I think that maybe having such a classically trained director on the first Thor film, like they probably looked at it as being a good idea just because of what Thor is. But I almost feel like that was kind of a nail into the foot of that character. But also, if that didn't happen, I don't think we would have had Taika Waititi in the director's chair of both Thor Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's been a completely opposite turn for the Thor character, and it's been for the better. But the one constant in this Thor timeline has been Tom Hiddleston as Loki, and I'm excited. Even after 10 years of his debut, I'm still very excited to see the future for Tom Hiddleston and Loki as it starts this week, the Loki series on Disney Plus. What are your thoughts out there on Loki starting up this week on Disney Plus? We want to hear your thoughts if you're just as excited to see the God of Mischief and what mischief he can create this week on Disney Plus. Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, coming up next on the back half of the show, it's our E3 preview part 1, where we talk the console makers, plus also as well, Knowing and Fine has got a fixation on a picture that was sent out to troll the internet, and boy has it ever, on Batman. And a little bit of blood spattered, although I kind of thought it looked like jam or whatnot. So you never know. It could have been like, you know, his breakfast all over the place. But again, we will go ahead.
It was very reminiscent of Watchmen, like the blood splatter on the circle. So you can tell there's some influence there. But yeah, there could have been a jelly donut. You know, Brucey Boy likes to have his Dunkins in the morning.
Absolutely, but you know, it could have been. It's either an homage to Zack Snyder or an homage to IHOP. So we'll talk about that coming up on the back end of the show. Plus also as well, Chivalry It's time to be chivalrous once again as Chivalry 2 hits PCs. We'll talk about why you might be interested in this game as well. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with the show. It's the Pop Culture Cosmos. Thank you so much for watching and listening out there as we're on over almost 50 stations now. We're on almost 50 radio stations around the world. We cannot thank you enough for being a part of the Pop Culture Cosmos. But right now we want to go ahead. E3 is around the corner. E3 starts up this time next week as we talk. So I want to hear your thoughts, Josh. We're going to go ahead into our E3 preview part 1. Part 2 will come on Friday with Marcus de la Garza and I talking about well, if you want to jump in too, you're more than welcome to on Friday. So we're going to be talking about the software makers and publishers, software publishers out there on Friday. But today it's about the big boys. It's about the big guys that are up to plate. It's going to be Nintendo, Sony, or PlayStation, and PlayStation and Microsoft coming up this weekend. Although PlayStation's not going to be at the event. Nintendo's going to do something separate. Microsoft is going to do something kind of separate but kind of attached. So, okay. When it comes to what's going to be there, what's going to be announced, we're going to start off with Nintendo first because we always say PlayStation, Xbox here, PlayStation, Xbox. But since you're wearing a Mario shirt, we're going to start off with Nintendo. I know there's a lot of speculation on what's going on because of the concerns that people have as far as COVID and how much as far as video game delays there are. But be that as it may, I want to hear your thoughts on Nintendo. First off, there's been wild speculation and pretty much confirmation from the top journalists out there, Jason Schreier of Bloomberg and so many others that are talking about a souped up Nintendo Switch. So your thoughts first off on a Nintendo Switch getting a bump up. Is this something that's going to be happening? Is this something that you're looking forward to? And is this something that's going to be able to shape the future of Nintendo going forward?
So I know we've talked about this before, with the Switch Pro, as they're calling it. Is there a need for it? I don't think so. I think we've kind of circled around to the conclusion that like Nintendo Switch doesn't really have any games that are really anywhere close to being able to showcase something like that, right? Like
it's usually the ports. It's usually the ports that have trouble on the Nintendo Switch currently.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can see a game like Bayonetta 3, right? Like, let us show you what Bayonetta 3 looks like on the Switch Pro, which would look really cool. But, I mean, I'm thinking about a game like Mario or even like Borderlands or Spyro the Dragon. Like, there would be no difference between that and the regular Switch, except for, the 4K resolution and whatever frames per second that they're going to be able to put on this thing. But other than that, like, I don't really see a need for this. But also, my concern here is, and I talked about this with Brank on the Super BS Gamescast, is the fact that like Nintendo is not above, because I think they did this with like a Xenoblade Chronicles game way back in the day. They're not above like taking something and making it exclusive to their souped up version of this console. And if that's the case, I think they're going to get a lot of hate from a lot of people because, we're in a time right now where these consoles aren't they're not easy to get, right? Because we're having the the microchip shortage and we have just a high demand and stores not being able to keep a lot of this stuff in stock. And especially like, as a parent, I couldn't see the justification in buying another Switch just to play, one or two games, especially since these Switches that they have are so new. Like, I don't think there's a lot of parents out there that can really afford to buy their kids new Switches, and that kind of isolates a lot of gamers too. I don't see a need for it. I'm sure some people would like it because not a lot of people have 4K televisions, like, so what's at that juncture, what is the point of this new system?
I mean, to me, it's just, is it going to move the needle? I mean, how much, when you talk about a Nintendo Switch Pro, how much more advanced is it? How much more powerful is it? How much more does it do for the gaming industry? How much does it do for all these publishers that are going to create titles for it? how much does it expand the Nintendo library? Nintendo's been able to, and we talked about this just briefly, that the ports seem to always have the problem chugging along with the Nintendo Switch because creating or porting a game that's existing on other consoles or PC to the Nintendo Switch has been a problem because it just doesn't seem to adapt very well because of the slower speeds and the lesser power that it has. But these Nintendo games have always been able to, because of its native technology, seems to take advantage of what every single nook and cranny of the Nintendo Switch. So it's never a problem for them. It's going to create a deeper, better looking Nintendo game, sure, but still, will it be in the ballpark of a PS4 and Xbox One, much less of an Xbox Series or PlayStation 5? No. So, and you're still going to have to make games going forward for the Nintendo Switch, not just the Nintendo Switch Pro, because if you do that, you're doing the same thing that Sony and Microsoft are getting themselves stuck into now, where they have a limited supply of individuals that have the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series. And if that's the case, you're going to put a game exclusive on there. You're limiting your player base. So you got to decide, do I want to go ahead and make this available to a larger audience? Or do I want to go ahead and just single out the Nintendo Switch Pro? I think all the games going forward, or at least virtually all of them, will be geared with the Nintendo Switch still in mind. And because there's so many out there right now, you can't deny that large audience. It's similar to what they're going through right now, again, like PlayStation, Xbox. You cannot deny the 110 PlayStation 4 owners that are out there and that huge number that there is of how many units that have been sold. Or with the Xbox Series, how many tens of millions that you sold of that as well. So, just to me, the Nintendo Switch Pro is a nice thing, but it's like you. I don't need it. I don't desire it. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be in a hurry to get it. Although it's Nintendo. I've been wrong on Nintendo before. People seem to love Nintendo in anything that they eat up. So, you know what, unless it's the Wii U. But then again, that's a different story altogether. But Nintendo Switch Pro could be something a lot of people love and clamor for, but I don't think for me and a lot of others, it's going to be something that we need.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like you're getting at a second ago. Like, it is totally a hobbyist console. Like this isn't going to be something that goes to the regular consumer. I don't think there's going to be something that parents go out of their way to buy their kids or kids save up their money for, as long as they just keep making, the software for the regular Switch. If this was something that's like a new console, like, hey, it's a Nintendo Light Switch or whatever, whatever the next like generation of Nintendo consoles is, then yeah, like, get hyped. But like, this is not. Again, we're living in a generation where people like have nice TVs and nice setups, but not everybody has 4K capabilities. So, I just it seems unnecessary, but I'm sure people will buy it because much like there are Apple fanatics out there, there are Nintendo fanatics. On the game side, is there anything at E3 you're hoping will be announced? Because I feel like the holiday season, we have to have at least one big first party announcement from Nintendo, whether that's Breath of the Wild 2, which probably won't get released until February or March of next year. I know we have a new Pokemon remake coming out, but like, other than that, like, I can't possibly think of anything. We haven't seen any trailers for any Metroid games or anything like that. So I feel like there has to be some big announcements about holiday gaming from their first party developers, or that things might not be so great for Nintendo when the holiday season gets here.
Yeah, the new Pokemon open world game that's coming out, that's scheduled for next year. I think, if anything, please let it not be just Splatoon 3. I know Splatoon is a nice little series, but it's never caught on to the lengths or level that Zelda or Mario games do. I know a lot of people are waiting to see a new Zelda game. I think it's about time a new Zelda came out. I'm not exactly a big Zelda fan myself, but I know a lot of people are, and I think you've been involved in Zelda before, so a Zelda being introduced into the wild, so to speak, pardon the pun, it would probably be a great way to go ahead and get everybody talking about Nintendo. I would love to see a new Mario game, a new full Mario game that people would love to get into. I think that's something that I think is a standard and a constant that a lot of people enjoy. A new maybe Mario Kart, that would be great, but I think a new Mario universe game where the platforming, the traditional stuff that they do, that he's done in the past, and all that. I think a traditional Mario game in a new universe, in a new setting, in a ramped up type platform probably would be for me the one thing I would like to see the most.
Yeah, I would like to see that too. Like maybe a Super Mario Odyssey 2, or whatever the next adventure is for Mario. They did release Mario 3D All Stars, which is something that they have stopped selling on their eShop, but you can still get a physical copy in most stores. But with that out in the wild, and Mario Kart still selling, Mario Kart 8 still selling crazy amounts of copies. Like, I wonder, like, if Nintendo is really feeling the need to put out another Mario game right now, as much as I would love to see that. So now, like, to me, it really hinges on either a surprise announcement about a new Metroid game, or a hey, surprise, Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be coming out in November, or perhaps a Star Fox game. I don't know. I don't. It's such a we've gotten a lot of like indie games and third party developers putting out things for Switch. We haven't really seen a lot of like brand new non remastered first party titles from Nintendo.
I'm betting on Zelda. I'm betting on new Zelda. I think that's something that, excuse me, that they're going to tease. I think that's going to something that they're going to tease for not this year. I don't think this year. I think they're going to tease it for down the road. Could be this year. They've got to have something, like you said. Nintendo's got to have something to go ahead and be part of this holiday. Maybe they can get away with a Splatoon and another smaller title, but we'll see. If they do bring out Zelda for this year, that will take the cake as probably the biggest selling game of the year, outside of maybe a Call of Duty or a GTA 6 if that dropped. But a GTA 6 I don't see dropping until 2022 at the earliest myself. But regardless, I think a Zelda would probably be the one thing I think people want the most. And I think that'd be the one thing that would get the most attention and is the most likely candidate to go ahead and be present at E3. PlayStation is up next for us, and I want to ask you this. When it comes to PlayStation, we've seen already some hints of things yet to come and maybe not yet to come when it concerns Horizon Forbidden West. That we saw an extensive gameplay. I was wondering the timing of it was kind of weird because E3 is around the corner, and I know that they're going to have their own PlayStation State of Play around that time. It's kind of weird that maybe this suggests that they've got a lot of stuff that they're going to debut outside of it, so they wanted to give Horizon Forbidden West some time, although they didn't give it a street date, which was kind of disappointing. Maybe they'll give it a street date coming up here next week. But what are your thoughts on PlayStation? What are you looking forward from them? We heard the news already about Gran Turismo 7 and also the next God of War, with the next God of War being delayed to next year. And both that and Gran Turismo 7, which were once exclusives to the PlayStation 5, now non-exclusives and coming to both PS4 and PS5. So I want to hear your thoughts on what you're looking for from PlayStation coming up this week.
Yeah, that was a very surprising announcement by them. Like, that shows a very human side of Sony, who tends to act more robotic, right? Like, what's going to make money, instead of like, hey, what do the gamers actually want? So it was surprising to hear them say, hey, we're going to put out Gran Turismo and God of War on PS4 also, because those were originally slated to be PS5 exclusives.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would like to see, like, I don't know, like, did they say they were having a state of play, or did they say they were doing some kind of thing outside?
I think they are doing some kind of thing. They're not going to let E3 go by, or in that time frame, even though they're not doing anything with E3. They're not going to go ahead and probably they've got to go ahead and have something announced during that time. I mean, I would imagine so. I mean, we don't even have a street date yet for Horizon Forbidden West. So I'm assuming that they're going to have something announced over the course. They're not going to let Microsoft and Nintendo have all the fun.
Yeah. And like, I know Horizon Forbidden West was like, hey, it might come out in 2021, but it might not. We'll let you know soon. So I don't know what soon means. Looking at like, because I thought that like Square's conference was basically going to be the PS5 or PlayStation show, right? Because they seem to have the most Sony exclusives these days. What I would like to see from PlayStation, and obviously this is going to tie back to Square. I'd like to see footage of Final Fantasy 16. It'd be nice to see. I know you'd be excited about a sequel to the Order 1886.
Just what I was thinking.
That would be cool. I guess like what a lot of people are expecting to hear is what does the next chapter of Uncharted look like? Because there's been a lot of whisperings online of people, of them allegedly recruiting a team to work on the next Uncharted. And, whether I don't know what Naughty Dog's involvement in this is going to be, but it sounds like there's been a lot of divisiveness amongst the different Sony studios because they're trying to get a team together to work on this next Uncharted title.
Yeah.
And what that's going to look like and when that's going to come out, I don't know. But they have to have, it seems like the next big thing, right? Because they seem to think that everyone's really excited about a Last of Us 2 remake or a Last of Us remake, but I don't think people really care that much. I think Uncharted is the big boat going forward.
Well, The Last of Us Part 2 did very well for Sony last year, and The Last of Us remake, like you said, not really many people are really excited about that because we've already seen The Last of Us refurbished already in a form or fashion already for PS4. So we're going to see that again with PS5. It's great. Woohoo! Yeah, we're all excited for that. But with Naughty Dog, there's I guess from what I've heard before in the past that there's a new IP that they're working on. But you're right. They would be remiss in not working on an Uncharted in some form or fashion. From what we saw in Uncharted 4, and spoilers coming up, it was most likely leaning towards the daughter of Nathan Drake going ahead and being at the forefront of the Uncharted games if they were to go ahead and do so going forward, which would be cool by me, and seeing guest appearances by Nathan Drake would still be awesome. But be that as it may, you mentioned the Order 1886, and I had that already on top of my head, and I was almost looking at my keychain of the Order 1886 as you were doing that. I know the studio that created it is no longer attached to Sony, and they're doing their own thing, but the IP is still with Sony, and the story and the world was rich and full of life, even though the game itself was roasted over the coals for only being 5 to 6 hours of actual gameplay, and the gameplay itself was also kind of bashed and rudimentary and not exactly full of what it could do. It wasn't exactly up to par as far as even a shooter is concerned, but the world itself had so much potential, and the graphics on it at that time were breathtaking, and the vision of what you could see. In fact, it even stands up today. If you put it on a PS4 Pro, if you put it on a PS5, it would look so beautiful on that platform. So to see an Order 1887 or the Order 1888 and go into that would be great, because I don't think people are getting if it came out today, even just a few years later, if it came out today, I don't think there would be as many people up in arms about it as far as the run length and whatnot, because of the fact that we've seen games since then have those type of campaigns that run that long, and not as much ado has been made of it. So I think that it's came out at the wrong time, but I think it does have potential for a future going forward. So I'd love to see that. I'd love to see the Order 1887 or 1888. I'm all in on that if that's the case.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it would be, and here's the thing too, like people like those 6 to 8 hour game experiences. I mean, I like it because, you look at a game like Assassin's Creed or Zelda or something, or even Final Fantasy, and that's like hours and hours. That's a huge commitment. Whereas, I could sit down and play something like Gears of War or Halo, and those campaigns are less than 10 hours usually. So I like those experiences because then I can go back and replay them and not feel like I am going to be spending the rest of my life playing this game. So,
and I know a lot of people bought it out there at a very discounted price, but I know there's a lot of people that have purchased it and have played through it. So it's something I think a lot of people would really enjoy if it got a chance again to go back into that world of the Order. But last but not least, as far as what we're hoping and what we're previewing, again, is Microsoft, Xbox. They're going to be coming up, I think, this time next week on Sunday of next week. So I want to hear your thoughts as far as what you think Microsoft could showcase. I know Halo has got to be the first thing on everybody's mind. I know Halo Infinite has got to be the first thing that they got to talk about. It's going to be out there. It's going to be the big thing that they push because it's already overdue because it was supposed to come out at the time of launch for the Xbox Series. So I want to hear your thoughts on what Xbox has in mind, or you think Xbox has in mind for this upcoming E3.
So some things that I can say without a doubt, I know will be there. I'm sure we're going to see Hellblade 2. We will see Halo. I'm predicting we're going to see a Gears spinoff of some kind. I don't think it's going to be Gears 6, but I think it's going to be a spinoff of some kind. Whether that's like a another tactics type game or it's another like judgment type game. I think that we will definitely see Gears of War have a presence there. There will be Forza and there will be Fable, most definitely. And something that I would really like to see, but probably won't happen, and I say this every year around E3, I want to see Alan Wake 2.
You never know. Could be the American Nightmare coming back again in a new Alan Wake, but we'll wait and see. That's a great suggestion. I do want to see where we're at with Halo and get a confirmation that it's coming out this year. I think because even with the pandemic and the coronavirus and all that slowing everything down, I think they've had enough time to go ahead and put that one out for this holiday. So that could be the big ticket for Microsoft this holiday because they are in sore need of bringing exclusive content to that console. I mean, they don't have anything really for that console because the medium is actually coming out to PlayStation 5 because it's already been rated. So
yeah. Well, so and we can't forget too that Microsoft is doing a joint conference with Bethesda. So yes. I'm sure we're going to get, something from Starfield, and I don't want to say we're going to get footage of Elder Scrolls or any news on that, but I feel like Microsoft, now that they own these big guns, they want to show them off. So I feel like we'll probably get something related to Elder Scrolls, but I don't know.
Well, we'll wait and see, my friend. But it is going to be very interesting with this new combined Bethesda Microsoft package that we're going to be seeing this time next week. And we'll update you on everything E3 over the course of our shows. In fact, we're going to have daily specials during the course of E3. Looking forward to it. Once again, follow us on our Facebook page, Pop Culture Cosmos, where we'll give you, again, daily updates. Plus, we'll recap everything right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos and the PCC Multiverse as well. What are your thoughts out there on what you're looking for? What are you looking for what are you looking for at this upcoming E3 2021? We want to hear your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. And stay tuned for this Friday, because Marcus, and I'm hoping Josh can jump in as well, on a preview of the software publishers for E3. We'll talk about what we may see from some of them coming up on the Friday show as well. And when we return, we're going to have Noe and Fine from Hunting Queen. He has been fixated on a picture that came out to the internet that had the internet explode for 10 minutes on the new Flashpoint movie with a Batman suit, maybe belonging to Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne character, with a whole bunch of blood and guts on it, or it could have been toast and jelly. We don't know. We'll go ahead and speculate that right after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with the show. It's the Pop Culture Cosmos. Want to thank so much Noe and Fine for stopping by on today's program. And we want to thank so much Noe and Fine from Hunting Queen stopping by on today's program. But before we head on out, my friend, let us go back and rejoice and regale in the splendor of ye old merry England in the past, my friend, as Chivalry 2 sets to debut as full in PC. It's coming out of beta mode, my friend. And that in the world's worst English accent that I did, ye old merry English accent. So, as I said, in the worst English accent ever, Chivalry 2 is coming to PC. It's coming out of beta, and it's a 64-player multiplayer event, first person, just battle royale, where you're just beating everybody up and trying to use whatever it is that you have there as far as weapons, tools, or whatever you can do. It's hand to hand. It's jousting. It's it's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and it really is getting the internet up in arms. This is a title that the first one came out, and it got a little bit of waves out there. It got a little bit of notice. It's one of those mid-tier titles that could get a much higher platform. And we talked about this with Biomutant, and we've talked about this before with a couple other games this year. Because the releases are not as prevalent right now, because we're just coming out of this pandemic and whatnot, I want to hear your thoughts on Chivalry 2. This could get a lot more notice with a lot more people.
This feels like it would have been better released back when, like, the pandemic was going on, right? Like when Renaissance fairs had to go online, and they're like, it would be real cool if while we were talking, we could create digital characters and beat the snot out of each other with medieval weapons and hammers and stuff. And then this game comes out, like I love the idea of it. I'm not going to play it, but like, I love the idea of it, of just being able to like be thrown into a battleground with 64 other people, and you just kind of swing that great sword around and see what happens. And
or a spear, or you've got the clubs, and you got it's just...
it sounds like this game's going to be a lot more skill oriented than like a Call of Duty, because like Call of Duty, you have to like, you can just like spray bolter, but in this one you have to be really precise in what you do. Like these medieval combat games are not simple things by any stretch of the imagination. Like there's certain mechanics involved in swinging the sword and throwing the spears and shooting the arrows. Like I think that this game is going to be fun, but I don't think it's going to be easy.
Dodge, parry, and block will be keys to your success. From what I've seen, it looks like it's going to be something I could enjoy. Hopefully I get a chance to delve into it. And the process now with strictly PC games in the past is that now they can look towards console gaming with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, because they can look a game like this, which would run smoothly on a high-end PC, was never really thought that it could go ahead and do the same on consoles. But games like these, which tax PCs a lot, can also really start looking towards the future and be part of a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series. So I'm excited about the possibility that it could go to consoles, and that we could see a game like this, which was normally meant for a PC audience, come to consoles as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it hitting the Xbox, but Sony, who are like, you have to pay us a whole lot of money, and then we need a chunk of the money that you guys make. After this stuff released through the Epic thing, I don't see Sony allowing something like this to happen, especially if the studio is not like rich, but I can definitely see it coming out on like the Xbox. That would be cool.
Absolutely. So we'll see what happens as we become chivalrous once again with Chivalry 2 coming to PC, and this 64-player multiplayer game that has really gotten a lot of interest, even more so because, again, I think in this mid-tier platform that it was originally set for, originally a lot of people were gearing it for, has really gotten a higher profile because it's one of the few marquee releases so far this year. So we're interested in seeing the progress of Chivalry 2, and if you'll take up the call for Chivalry 2 as it comes out this week. Sorry, I'm not going to be doing any more bad English accents for now. Try me next week. What are your thoughts out there on Chivalry 2? Are you interested in giving this a try, or are you hoping that it's going to come to a console platform in the not too distant future? Share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. I cannot thank you enough, as always, for joining me, even though your internet was down, eaten by your dogs. Your dog ate your internet, but you still managed to get through and join us today. But is there any last thoughts on the way out?
Definitely going to be an interesting couple of weeks, with E3 and all these big announcements and the alleged drop of the Spider-Man trailer that might happen the next few weeks. So
it didn't happen for Tom Holland's birthday.
No, it did not. But, again, the rumor mill suggests that it is going to happen soon. So There's going to be a lot of interesting in the next month. We're going to get a lot of things, a lot of things to talk about. So I'm excited to see what's floating our way on the pop culture cosmos.
Absolutely. Keep track of what we're doing for E3. But the trailer may drop for the guy who's playing Tom Holland at Avengers Campus as he flies through the air. He may actually get the trailer dropped on his birthday coming up real soon. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the pop culture cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great